Discover the incredible moment when a lonely CEO transforms a little girl's $5 birthday cake wish. Mark Thompson stood in the middle of the bustling bakery, the joyful sounds of laughter and the mouth-watering aroma of baked goods surrounding him. Yet, for all its warmth, he felt an unbearable chill inside. The rich tapestry of life he observed around him seemed foreign, as though he were watching a film from a distance, a life he had once known but had now estranged himself from. The CEO of a struggling tech company, he wore the polished facade of success, but behind his grand office's closed doors, loneliness consumed him. He had ventured into this quaint neighborhood, a place he once roamed as a child, seeking a momentary reprieve from the relentless pressure of board meetings and dwindling profits. Yet, as he approached the counter, his heart sank at the sight of a small girl. Her tear-streaked face shattered the illusion of happiness encasing the bakery. Emily, a little girl clutching a worn-out birthday invitation, was desperately pleading with her visibly weary mother for a $5 cake, one that might transform her birthday from bleak to bright. Mark felt a tightening in his chest. Her sorrow struck a chord that reverberated deeply in him. This was the first moral dilemma that pierced Mark's heart. Should he intervene? He could easily purchase the cake and restore joy to this child's special day. It seemed simple enough, a straightforward act of kindness. But as he stepped closer, he felt the weight of the townspeople's curious eyes upon him, their whispers echoing doubts of his sincerity. Would his good intentions be overshadowed by the burden of his wealth? His mind raced, tangled in a web of confusion. This town did not forget the wealthy tech mogul who had turned his back on them when things got tough. The skepticism he faced was palpable. Could he ever hope to be accepted as one of them, not just an outsider offering charity? The moment he approached the counter, it felt like a symbol of privilege, an admission of guilt. The laughter around him faded, his heart struggled against a tide of doubt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mark's breath quickened as he stood torn between the desire to help and the fear of judgment. What if he was seen not as a benefactor, but as a mere reminder of disparity? Could he truly connect with Emily and her mother, or would they remain aware of the invisible barrier constructed by his wealth? He imagined their laughter transforming to suspicion, the warmth of their company replaced by the coldness of doubt. Then, he made the move, deciding to buy the cake. Yet in those brief seconds, uncertainty churned into a tumultuous storm. He felt the tug of something greater, a longing for meaning beyond numbers and profits. A chance to be part of something real again, but which part of him would they accept? Would he be seen as authentic, or merely a shadowed figure trapped in the bright light of their reality? As he approached them, heart racing, he realized he was on the precipice of something profound, yet terrifying. The weight of their expectations pressed on him like a vice, threatening to fracture this budding connection and sunder it forever. Anxiety coiled tightly around him, doubt tainted every hopeful thought. Mark Thompson stood at a crossroads, a moment poised to shift his narrative, as the community observed, awaiting his decision with bated breath. Would he step into the light or retreat to the shadows? Mark extended his hand toward the counter, trembling slightly as he retrieved a crisp $20 bill from his wallet. He could feel the bakery's atmosphere shift, the laughter faded into an uncertain silence, all eyes drawn to him. Each second stretched, amplifying his internal conflict. Would this simple act of kindness defy the weight of his past choices, or would it merely reinforce the barriers that had long since formed between him and the world? As he placed the bill on the counter, the cashier's surprised look met his gaze. "Just the cake," he said, attempting to quell the rising tide of discomfort. The cashier blushed, glancing between him and Emily. In that moment, she didn't see a wealthy CEO but rather a man seeking redemption in a small act. A flicker of hope sparked in Mark's heart as he handed the cake to Emily, whose tear-streaked face began to brighten. This was the first glimmer of genuine connection he felt in years. Her shy smile ignited a sense of warmth that broke through his icy facade. Yet, as Mark turned to leave, he heard whispers behind him. What's he doing here? Does he think a cake makes up for everything? Each murmur dug deeper than expected, puncturing his moment of triumph. Unraveled emotions flooded over him, shame clawed at his throat. He realized this wasn't about the cake. It was about recognition, a transaction not merely of currency, but of acknowledgement and acceptance. The weight of his own history loomed large. Returning to his office, he had a reputation to salvage, a company to stabilize. But standing in that bakery, disconnected from the corporate ladder and metrics of success, he started to question what success truly meant. Was it merely numbers on a balance sheet, or was it building relationships, re-establishing lost connections, and finding purpose beyond profit? Mark stepped outside, the evening sun warming his face, offering clarity. He had wrapped himself in his corporate identity, sidelining what really mattered. He turned back, glancing at the bakery, an oasis of genuine interaction. He shouldn't merely visit unannounced, he should invest in this reality, both emotionally and professionally. If he wanted this town to embrace him again, he needed to commit, to forgive his previous shortcomings, and truly connect. Life had always been about consumption for him, consuming markets, consuming power, consuming resources, yet now, he understood it was also about investment in people. With each step back toward his car, the resolve solidified. It was time to redefine his legacy, shifting focus from personal gain to being a positive force. But this wouldn't be easy. The boardroom was cutthroat, people were cynical, and he had adversaries lying in wait, eager to remind him of his past failures. The confrontation of past mistakes merged with the bold ambition of change. It was a delicate balance. How could he transform a tech business steeped in taboo into a beacon of hope for a town he had betrayed? As he sat behind the wheel, staring at the rearview mirror and contemplating his next move, an idea flickered in his mind. What if he could turn the company around by forging authentic ties with the community? Mark's heart raced as he contemplated an initiative that would not only revitalize his business but also touch people's lives, the kind of initiative that could bridge the gap he had struggled to understand. With urgency tinged with trepidation, he called his assistant to begin outlining plans. Yet before he could make a single real decision, he felt a heavy shadow trailing him, reminding him that not everyone had forgotten the past. Resistance would come from within his own ranks, from those who thrived on the status quo. Mark had taken the first step, but the real journey was just beginning. The moment of truth was approaching, facing those entrenched in their beliefs, those whose loyalty might waver. Would he be the architect of his redemption or fall prey to the tides of resistance? Time would tell, but he was ready to dive deeper, to challenge everything he had built. As he turned the ignition, a rush of determination coursed through him. The air was thick with tension, ripe with possibility. The time for cautious decisions was over, the moment of confrontation with his demons edged closer. Would he seize this shifting tide, or would he let it slip through his fingers? As Mark drove back to the office, the hum of the engine matched the pounding of his heart. His mind raced with possibilities and pitfalls woven together in a tapestry of risk. The thought of facing his board was daunting. They thrived on control, power, and profitability. Would they buy into his vision of a more community-driven business model, or would they see it as a betrayal of their interests? Arriving at the sleek glass building, he parked and sat for a moment, allowing the weight of what he intended to propose to settle within him. You can't shy away from this, he whispered to himself, seeking courage from within. Stepping out, he felt the cool air bring clarity. His past wasn't going to dictate his future. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The board members had gathered, eyes narrowing as he entered the conference room, their skepticism palpable. Mark took his seat, aligning his thoughts. The room was adorned with sleek technology and meticulously arranged papers, symbols of the business empire he had built. Yet today, he felt less like an emperor and more like an imposter. As he began to speak, he felt the weighty silence envelop him. I want to discuss a new initiative that will transform our company, he declared, staring into the wary eyes of his colleagues. The room shifted slightly, murmurs erupting as he detailed his vision of community engagement and sustainable practices. He shared how the bakery visit spurred a realization: business was not merely about profit, but connection, empathy, and trust. Are you suggesting we divert resources from profitability to community service? Jeff, the CFO, sneered, his voice sharp like a knife. That's not how this business operates. Each challenge from the board stung, yet Mark pressed on, his voice growing steadier. It doesn't have to be one or the other. There's a market for businesses that authentically engage with their communities. We can revitalize our brand and foster loyalty at ISNT just philanthropy. It's building a sustainable future. Internal doubts swirled, but he identified a growing resolve within himself. Memories of the young girl's face at the bakery fueled his passion, reminding him that this endeavor was greater than numbers on a report. He knew he had to confront the cynicism of his peers head-on. People want purpose. They want to believe that their money is going to something meaningful. And in a world that's growing increasingly disconnected, isn't that worth fighting for? His pulse quickened, sensing the shift in energy around the table. We need to alter our entire marketing approach, Laura, the head of PR, chimed in, her eyes narrowing as she considered the implications. What kind of investment are you envisioning? An investment in community partnerships, local sourcing, and outreach programs, tangible changes that matter. We position ourselves as industry leaders not through greed but through genuine engagement. As he spoke, Mark sensed resistance falter slightly. He could almost see the gears turning in their heads. The ideas sounded incongruous, perhaps even radical in their minds, but he had unearthed something primal, a human need for connection. He could feel the tide starting to shift, but then, as if in perfect timing, another voice filled the room. Mark, let us not kid ourselves. This is the same folly that led to your downfall, Sandy, the COO, challenged, a dangerous glint in her eye. You think this is going to endear you to the community? The only thing that matters to them is a return on investment. The challenge propelled Mark into an internal spiral, equal parts fear and defiance colliding. Would he ever escape the shadow of his past choices? The day he had steered his company away from moral values came rushing back. Could he forge a new identity when others preferred the old ways? Breathing deeply, he steadied himself, the moment intensifying. Sandy, it's this mindset that has kept us from truly connecting with our customers, he countered, lowering his voice yet filling it with conviction. Are we only in this to make numbers, or do we genuinely care about the impact we create? As the room fell silent, a flicker of uncertainty crossed the faces of the board members. Mark had pushed the boundaries he had feared to cross, his vulnerability transforming into purpose. Just as hope began to blossom amidst the cautious atmosphere, his assistant slipped in a note. Her worried expression mirrored the tension still thick in the air. We need to speak privately, it read. Curiosity gnawed at him, interrupting the momentum he had fought to build. What could possibly demand his immediate attention now? As the board meeting pressed on, Mark's mind teetered between newfound determination and the looming possibilities of unraveling consequences. Would this pivotal moment of courage lead to redemption or expose vulnerabilities he wasn't ready to face? The answer awaited just beyond the door. The air in the conference room felt electric, charged with the tension of Mark's challenge and the ramifications of the note he had just received. He could feel the eyes of his colleagues on him, but his focus was drifting. The heart of the matter lay not only within the board's beliefs but also within his own unraveling confidence. As he leaned back in his chair, the weight of his past choices pressed down on him. Had he really been so blinded by profit and power that he neglected the essence of human connection? In the moments when profits were maximized at the cost of authenticity, did he sacrifice his passion for purpose? Mark, a voice broke through his contemplation. Laura again. What is your plan now? If we continue this conversation, we need to address the elephant in the room, your history with failure when thinking outside the box. The jab stung, and he felt the heat rise in his cheeks. The last time he had attempted to forge a new direction for the company, he had miscalculated the market's readiness. Yet, this was different. This time, it wasn't merely about trends or tactics. It was about something deeper, woven into the fabric of why he started this company in the first place. Taking a deep breath, he sat up straighter. I acknowledge my past failures, but I refuse to let them define my future. This initiative reflects a necessary evolution. Being adaptable in today's market requires stepping out of our comfort zones. It's what I've always believed, yet I allowed fear to cloud my purpose. The moment stretched, and the board members exchanged glances. Doubt still lurked in their eyes, but Mark sensed a slight shift. We owe it to ourselves and our stakeholders to adapt. We can't cling to a model that no longer serves a changing society. Sandy crossed her arms, tilting her head as she considered his words. And if it fails again? You wouldn't just be risking your career, you would potentially tarnish the company's reputation. Then let it fall on me, Mark asserted, voice stronger than he felt. If I truly believe in this vision, I have to be willing to take the heat. Adverse outcomes can teach us lessons that success sometimes masquerades. Risk is a part of growth. As murmurs rose around the room, Mark felt a flicker of hope. Was this what it meant to be a leader? Accepting the possibility of failure while pursuing meaningful change? This dynamic felt like the very essence of entrepreneurship, embracing the unknown while striving for connection, which had grown rare in his world of relentless metrics and profit margins. He could almost see the infinitesimal cracks beginning to form in the board's skepticism. But before he could mentally catalog these small victories, his assistant reappeared, this time with a sense of urgency etched on her face. Please, can I speak with you now? Excuse me, Mark said to the board, rising from his seat. He could feel their eyes boring into him, judging, questioning, but he had made his stand. He stepped out of the room, preparing himself for whatever awaited him beyond the door. In the corridor, his assistant's eyes were ablaze with urgency. Mark, there's been a situation. The young girl from the bakery, the one whose birthday cake you mentioned during the meeting, her family ran into financial trouble, and they need help. Mark's heart sank. This was the raw reality he had sought to embrace, a life intertwined with community struggles. Did his vision extend to moments like these? As thoughts swirled in his mind, he hesitated. What if his newfound mission bled into personal responsibilities? Is this what it's about? He questioned, grappling with ethical dilemmas as the weight of his past descended once more. Am I just one more CEO trying to save face? His assistant shook her head. No, this is what you wanted to pursue. This is about genuine impact, not just in theory. Reality washed over him like cool water, a stark juxtaposition to the trepidation that had overwhelmed him earlier. Would helping this family symbolize a turning point, not just for the girl, but for Mark himself? His resolve solidified. It was time to confront the deeper purpose behind his ambition, to truly align personal values with professional choices. Let us go and see what we can do. As he turned back toward the boardroom, an unexpected clarity surged within him. Could stepping out of this merely transactional world forge a more meaningful existence? Mark sensed the tug of opportunity, but the question remained, was he ready to face the consequences of such profound transformation? Mark stepped out of the glass-walled boardroom, the chill of the corridor stark against the warm undercurrents of his earlier confrontation. His assistant's words echoed in his mind, mingling with the weight of the meeting just past. He had reclaimed a fragment of his vision for the company, but now, a chance to enact that vision loomed overhead like a shadow. The urgency that fueled his assistant's plea heated his resolve as they traversed the building toward the exit. He imagined the little girl's face, illuminated by candlelight and laughter, a stark contrast to the shadows of uncertainty that had clouded his own life. But the question stubbornly persisted, how could he pivot from a world dominated by ROI to one of genuine connection? As they walked, Mark's mind raced. He had maneuvered through corporate landscapes, made decisions that affected countless lives, but had he truly ever fostered meaningful change? The hustle and bustle outside the glass facade beckoned, yet something deeper tugged him inward, a longing for purpose in a life spent in boardrooms and balance sheets. They crossed the bustling street and stopped in front of the bakery. It was quaint, a cozy establishment, but Mark couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that he had failed to see this layer of life while consumed by corporate aspirations. An ordinary shop, but here, the dream of a birthday cake held the power to catalyze transformation, not just for the little girl, but perhaps for himself as well. He pushed the door open, a gentle bell chiming above them. The sweet aroma of sugar mingled with the bittersweet scent of his apprehensions. Behind the counter, various pastries basked under the glow of display lights, their beauty juxtaposing the looming crisis ahead. Mark felt like an intruder, an outsider in a space that breathed joy amid impending financial crisis. "Hi there." The baker, an older woman with flour dusting her apron, looked up with a bright smile that faded into concern. "You must be here about the Rodriguez family?" Mark nodded, squaring his shoulders. "Yes, I'm here to see how I can help." The baker glanced toward the back, where he imagined the family was huddled, grappling with the weight of decisions that could alter their lives irreparably. "The young girl, she's a sweetheart. Just needs this birthday to be special after everything they've faced." "Tell me more," Mark requested, his voice steadying, urgency transforming into a drive to act. The idea of investing in a community not only captivated him, it ignited a spark in his heart. This effort could symbolically pave the way for his renewed vision. As she elaborated on the Rodriguez family's story, Mark felt a burning conviction growing within him. Each detail cemented a profound truth: their struggles had predominantly grown from systemic factors he had long ignored, buried beneath spreadsheets and quarterly forecasts. "Can you help?" the baker asked, eyes glistening with hope and fear intermingled. Could he, in fact, offer more than just financial assistance? The thought raced through his mind, breaching the walls he had built around his corporate persona. Could this transition be heartfelt and real? The answer, injectively clear, urged him to intertwine his resources with tangible change. "I'll cover the costs of the cake and send over some funds for their ongoing needs," Mark decided, the determination clear in his tone. A mix of disbelief and gratitude washed over the baker's face. "Really? That's incredibly generous." The gravity of his decision took hold as he processed the weight of this new direction. Was he finally stepping away from the shackles of his previous self, opening the door to a more authentic existence? As he exited the bakery, recharged with newfound purpose, Mark realized the implications of his actions extended far beyond the cake itself. Perhaps, in helping this family, he could ignite a ripple effect, not just for them, but for himself and his company. But as he walked away, an unsettling thought lurked: this newfound resolve would require him to confront deeper truths within the company culture he had steered. Was his transformation merely surface level, or would it endure through conflict? The next steps would be crucial, and Mark knew that facing his colleagues with the intention of nurturing connection instead of profit was only the beginning. As he navigated his way back to the office, a lingering question hung in his mind. Could he truly reshape the core of his company, or was he setting himself up for yet another failure? Tomorrow's board meeting awaited, and with it, the daunting task of revealing his intentions for a radical change that would redefine success itself. As Mark approached the office building the next day, a blend of anxiety and anticipation coursed through him. It felt as if the weight of his recent decisions had carved a permanent mark on his psyche. The reflection of his corporate identity in the glass facade now seemed faint, overshadowed by the vivid image of a little girl's smile awaiting a birthday celebration. He stepped into the elevator, its steel walls closing in on him like a trap, amplifying the solitude he felt. The other passengers, engrossed in their phones and conversations, were disconnected from the urgency of his thoughts. The previous night had ignited a fire in him, but would that intensity survive the scrutiny of the boardroom? The board meeting commenced as expected, a sterile room filled with executives draped in tailored suits, each face a mask of ambition. As he laid out statistical analyses and growth forecasts, he felt the familiar corporate rhythm beginning to reclaim him. But as the figures droned on, he caught himself drifting back to the bakery, to the apprehensive hope in the baker's eyes. He realized he was standing at a crossroads where numbers transformed into lives, and profit margins intertwined with purpose. The moment presented itself when he paused mid-presentation, the data nearly escaping him. "Before we discuss the quarterly targets," he interjected, the tremor in his voice barely masked by the stone-cold conferences around him, "I want to address the foundation of the business, our values." Shocked faces turned toward him. He had veered off script, abandoning the comfortable veil of corporate speak. Unsure yet unwavering, he continued. "Last night, I visited a local bakery. It's run by a woman devoted to creating joy for children. There's a family, struggling. Every birthday should be celebrated, yet not every child gets that opportunity." He could see brows furrowing, skepticism in the eyes that had once respected his calculated detachment. Are we only here to chase profit? He pressed, his heart racing. Details matter, but they shouldn't overshadow the human element. We have the resources, the power to enact change beyond ourselves. Tension rippled through the room. Questions arose, a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. A finance head piped up, "Are you suggesting we divert funds into community initiatives? What about the return on investment?" Mark steadied himself against the motion of doubt. What if the true return isn't just about money? What if relationships, loyalty, and true community engagement redefine our core success? A silence enveloped the room, thick and palpable, his vulnerability laid bare. Yet doubt crept in. Was he merely masking an internal struggle with self-doubt by splashing idealism onto the company's conservative principles? Could he convince them that redefining success extended beyond the bottom line? The conversation shifted, questions followed, but the weight of resistance lingered. He felt as if he was peeling back layers not only of the board's attitudes but also of his own fears. Uncertainty gnawed at him. Was embracing an emotional narrative truly the path to championing a new corporate ethos? As the meeting drew to a close, Mark found himself back in the escape of the corridor, the apprehension of his colleagues swelling behind him. The lingering successes and failures that enveloped him became a chorus of uncertainty. Even if he had sown the seeds of change in their minds, the battle was far from over. His path was rocky and uncharted, shrouded in conflict yet pulsing with potential. "Tomorrow will be different," he muttered under his breath, a mantra he hoped would ignite the truth he was still struggling to accept. What awaited him was the restless quest for authenticity within a world often leaning toward apathy, the budding realization that he might have to fight tooth and nail to truly escape the binds of a corporate mindset that had defined him for so long. With the clarity of purpose surged anew, Mark arrived at a profound question: could I truly lead not only for profit but for the people behind those numbers? As he turned to leave, another thought bubbled to the surface. Darker and more formidable. Could he face the impending backlash from those threatened by his change, or would he find allies in unexpected places to fuel his vision? As the morning sun filtered through the office blinds, Mark sat at his desk, the weight of yesterday's audacity still clinging to him. He opened his laptop, greeted by a familiar dashboard of emails and reports, yet the numbers felt different now. They were no longer just figures, they were stories waiting to be told, lives waiting to be impacted. His hands hovered over the keyboard. He longed to write an email that would rally his team towards a new vision, yet a familiar whisper of self-doubt began to echo in his mind. What if they won't follow you? He cleared his throat, forcing the thought aside, and focused on the glimmer of possibility replacing it. The office buzzed around him, conversations fluttering through the air, but he sought one-on-one discussions rather than the usual group meetings that felt too impersonal for what he wanted to achieve. He had to ignite a fire in others, just as the baker had ignited one in him. Was it foolish to believe that he could inspire a profound change in a corporate culture steeped in self-interest? After gathering his courage, he invited key team members to lunch, aware that the questions would come, that he would have to stand firm as he explored this uncharted territory. As his colleagues gathered in the conference room, he sensed their skepticism mingling with curiosity. They were experts in their fields, their minds honed to dissect plans and strategies. Could he translate his vision into language that resonated with them? "Thanks for joining me today," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I want to discuss something that's been weighing on me." Without introducing his intent outright, he recounted the bakery visit, painting a vivid picture of the hopeful little girl, the baker's sacrifices, and the idea that a business could be more than profit-driven. Each word triggered ripples of surprise, disbelief, and then contemplation among the group, a mixture of reactions that fueled his resolve to push further. "I believe we're at a crossroads," Mark continued. "What if we shifted our focus from exclusively hitting quarterly targets to also investing in our community? Can we innovate not just within our products but in our purpose?" One of his senior managers raised an eyebrow. "That's a nice idea in theory, Mark, but what do you think our shareholders will say? They're not going to buy into sentimentality." "That's exactly it," he fired back, his passion igniting. "Can we afford to ignore the emotional connection people have with our brand? In the long run, isn't it better to build loyalty through shared values rather than just a bottom line? The room was silent, each person contemplating the implications of what he proposed. Mark observed as the gears in their minds turned. He felt a shimmer of hope. Was this the pivotal moment that might pivot the tide in favor of change? As discussions continued, he noticed the dynamics shifting subtly. They began to reflect on their values, their motivation for being in their respective roles, not just as employees but as agents of potential influence. He encouraged them to propose initiatives that could intertwine corporate responsibility with business obligations, showcasing how compassion could yield unexpected dividends. By the time lunch concluded, there was an electric sense of purpose in the room. They had breathed life into the concept of a community-centric approach. Mark felt a flicker of triumph, but just as quickly, trepidation crept back in. What would happen the next time he faced the board, presenting these ideas that threatened the status quo? That night, he fell asleep with the echo of their conversations lingering in his mind. The excitement was palpable, yet it intertwined with a gnawing anxiety. Could he truly be the catalyst for change, or would he face a backlash that could shatter his ambitions? As dawn broke, Mark woke with renewed determination. He would not allow fear to dictate his path. The time had come to face the board again, to advocate for the people behind the numbers, to challenge the entrenched practices that stymied heart in business. With a burgeoning coalition within his team, Mark wondered, could they transform a long-held vision of success into one that embraced humanity amidst the relentless pursuit of profit? As he prepared for the day ahead, an unsettling thought hung over him. Would he have the courage to risk it all for something greater? The click of his pen echoed in the stark quiet of the room, sounding like a metronome against the backdrop of Mark's racing thoughts. Today would be the day he faced the board. Each tick of his pulse reminded him of the weight of the moment, and he was hyper-aware of every hesitant breath he took. The boardroom had always felt like a gladiator's arena, and today, he was the lone combatant, armed not with strategies of profit, but with the conviction of purpose. As he prepared his presentation, the previously exciting energy from lunch began to wane and transform into a creeping doubt. Could a narrative about community impact truly eclipse financial expectations? Would the board even entertain his ideas, or would they send him packing back to his corner, silenced by their sharp, corporate realism? He shuffled through slides, each one highlighting metrics, projections, and the heavily polished facade of traditional success. This was the path he was expected to walk, the safe, clean path leading to neat profits. But when he reflected on the bakery, the crisp smell of bread mingled with the warmth of human connections, his conviction grew. He had tasted the sweetness of purpose, and he couldn't help but want to share it. Rubbing the temples of his forehead, he smirked at the irony. He was a man trained to navigate numbers, yet here he was, pivoting towards emotional truths. Before he would enter the boardroom, he envisioned the little girl with her birthday cake, the excitement lighting up her eyes. It was that simple connection, that childlike trust in the goodness of others, that he sought to embody in his approach. The meeting began with the usual pleasantries, expedient chit-chat that slid like oil over the board members' unwavering focus. Eyes glazed, and murmurs settled a rhythm that seemed unfazed by change. But as he stood to speak, Mark felt a surge of power through his veins. This was his moment, his opportunity to challenge the notion that success resided strictly within the confines of a profit and loss statement. "Thank you all for being here," he began, leaning against the podium for comfort. The presentation flicked to life behind him, yet he found his gaze roaming through their faces, searching for signs of open-mindedness. "Today, I'm not just presenting numbers. I'm sharing a vision. The heart of our business can and should be wrapped in community, empathy, and connection." The room was filled with occasional exchanges of skeptical glances. He pressed on, unveiling anecdotes from the lunch meeting, weaving a narrative that highlighted real-life impacts. "Imagine if our initiatives inspired the same kind of ferment of community that a bakery does in the heart of its neighborhood. Imagine not just selling a product, but creating a legacy of care and connection." As he spoke, the flickers of doubt began to dissipate, replaced by a growing expectation. Pushing aside the images of dismissal, he found clarity. The response of the board was as complicated as the numbers themselves. Some faces softened, while others tightened in restraint. Mark's pulse quickened at the moment one board member raised a cautionary hand. "Mark, It's a compelling vision. However, how can we prove this will resonate with our shareholders? What about our bottom line? He met the challenge head-on, passion tilting his voice. What if I told you that innovation stems from values, that a purpose-driven company can cultivate greater loyalty? We can broaden our target market by enriching lives, not just through products, but by a palpable commitment to values that resonate on both sides of a transaction. The room pulsed with tension as he finished, surveying the board members for their reactions. Some leaned forward, intrigued. Others sat firm, fortified in their skepticism, yet all absorbed his words. Mark's chest swelled with hope. Each response was a new chapter in his journey towards transformation. Yet, amidst the fragile optimism of the moment, a flicker of internal conflict simmered. Was he ready for the consequences? If they accepted his ideas, could he deliver? What lengths would he have to go to defend this newfound mission? As he exited the boardroom, Mark felt both a sense of victory and trepidation settling upon him. They could ignite change, but the repercussions could fracture the very core of the company. Which would he choose? Just then, he caught sight of a child's drawing pinned to a colleague's cubicle, a crayon-colored cake, smiling brightly. It was simple yet profound, and suddenly everything seemed to crystallize. The real question lingered in the air: could he sustain the momentum for a vision that stretched beyond quarterly reports and instead embraced the heartbeat of humanity? He took a breath, his resolve tightening like a bowstring, already bracing for the journey ahead. What unseen challenges and allies awaited him? Mark stepped into the bustling corridor, the weight of the boardroom receding yet still holding on to threads of uncertainty. Each hurried footstep was a reminder of the orbit he was now navigating, a space where institutional skepticism loomed large, yet a flicker of possibility ignited within him. He could sense his ideas simmering, eager to break free into something tangible, yet doubts threaded through his consciousness like weeds choking a budding flower. He passed by colleagues, their laughter echoing in stark contrast to the tension brewing inside him. What's next? He pondered. Would he spearhead initiatives that aligned with his vision? Or would he retreat to the safe confines of financial metrics, spoon-fed success stories to quell his unease? As he settled at his desk, pushing papers aside, he recalled the faces in the boardroom, some begrudgingly intrigued, others suppressing disdain. The once familiar patterns of corporate life started to feel constraining, yet so did the pulse of responsibility. A realization struck him: despite the fear of rejection, he had willingly stepped onto a different path. The time for action had come, and with momentum building behind him, it led to a crucial decision: how to present his proposal to others within the company with the hope of mobilizing them towards his vision. He glanced at his notes, snippets of conversation from the bakery girls still echoing in his mind, their excitement infectious. Drawing deep from that well of inspiration, he envisioned a brainstorming session, a way to keep his vision alive, to involve others whose minds were sharper than his own. Collaboration could breed innovation, and in moments of shared vision, he could find allies. He tapped his fingers against the desk, each rhythm resonating with a new purpose. Mark had always been a solitary thinker, relying on his analytical prowess and past experiences meticulously. Now, he sensed a transformative shift. He needed more input, more voices to blend into the narrative. After all, a bakery's strength was not solely in its ingredients but in its community, its connections. With newfound resolve, he drafted an email, an invitation to key team members to join an informal meeting. This would be more than a presentation. It would be a gathering of minds eager to spitball ideas about merging purpose with profit. He hesitated, his fingers hovering over the send button. Doubts wormed their way back in. Would they see him as a charlatan, someone out for a fleeting idealism rather than solid results? No. He shook his head, resisting the familiar spirals of apprehension. Lighting the spark meant risking vulnerability, and he took a deep breath as he clicked send. That evening, staring out at the fading light through the office window, he wrestled with his thoughts. This was the first risk he'd taken in years, but would it matter? Could he craft a strategy that demonstrated value and emotion over mere numbers? The question was daunting, lighting his creative instincts but simultaneously sending tremors through his rational mind. As the days passed, the date for their brainstorming session approached, tension intermingling with excitement. He shared his thoughts, evoking the narratives of real lives touched by their products, of genuine connections. But would they rally around the concept of humanity woven within corporate textiles? No longer just crumpled beneath the weight of numbers and forecasts, Mark became a vessel of ideas, determined to harness the creativity that lay dormant within his team. Each meeting felt like an exhilarating sprint, with bursts of enthusiasm punctuating their discussions. However, amidst euphoria, caution settled like a fog. Questions loomed larger. What if their collective vision clashed with the existing corporate structure? What adversaries hid in the shadows of hierarchy, ready to snuff out their innovation? The meeting day arrived, tension radiating. Team members gathered, a flicker of anticipation sparking through the air. Mark stood, flanked by a whiteboard filled with scribbles. Excitement battling against uncertainty. He had to deliver a compelling narrative, one that championed purpose without compromising credibility. Today, Mark began, voice steady yet tinged with urgency, we reimagine our role not only as a corporation chasing numbers but as an entity that nurtures life and creates ripples of joy. He sensed a collective breath held, a shared yearning for something beyond cold predictions. But as he captured their attention, he couldn't shake the unsettling nothing swirling in the recesses of his mind. What would happen if the board rejected his circular path? The ire of traditionalists, the weight of his own ideals against the bottom line. Before he could spiral into worry, he pushed forward, fervently outlining their potential, the marriage of community values mingling with sales strategies. Faces softened, eyes brightened, yet beneath their encouraging nods lay an unseen war. They were not warriors, they were initiators, fearful of the repercussions of daring to differ. What if, he concluded, this time we not only push our company forward, but also preserve our humanity within its walls? As he scanned their expressions, a mix of apprehension and hope, he prepared to hear challenges, to face the doubts that lingered after their discussion. Yet, amidst that uncertainty, a new truth unfolded: a profound respect for the journey he had begun. But one final thought gripped him: if they failed to convince the board, would his efforts come full circle to haunt him? Would he emerge on the other side emboldened or embattled? That looming question swirled within him, consolidating his resolve. He would fight. He had to fight. And with that internal promise, he set his sights on the next phase, preparing not just for a meeting, but a defining moment that could change the entire course of their company or shatter it. The following weeks bore witness to an intense evolution within Mark Thompson's life and his company. The temporary buzz of hope sparked in the brainstorming session had ignited a fervor among his team that transcended mere corporate strategy. It had morphed into a genuine movement towards community engagement. As more team members rallied behind the initiative, Mark harnessed their collective enthusiasm into a structured framework. Together, they developed a robust plan titled Operations Heart, outlining a pathway for sustainable partnerships with local businesses, schools, and families in need. Mark's pulse quickened as he witnessed those around him transform from reserved colleagues into passionate advocates for something palpable and significant. They envisioned a company that could directly connect power and compassion, bridging the gap that had long isolated him from what truly mattered. However, during this burgeoning time of excitement, Mark recognized challenges remained. Bold ideas often met with skepticism, especially from the board, who had grown accustomed to quantifiable metrics driving their decisions. To navigate this tension, Mark meticulously prepared for the next crucial meeting. He wanted to ensure that every ounce of enthusiasm cultivated among his team would translate into compelling arguments for the board. On the day of the presentation, Mark entered the boardroom fortified and resolute. He took a deep breath, steadying himself against the familiar chill that gripped him each time he faced this elite group. As he laid out the details of Operations Heart, he framed it not just as an initiative, but as a critical pivot toward long-term sustainability both for the community and the company itself. His rationale was rooted in statistics, testimony, and a rekindled sense of authentic purpose. Our company's future hinges on our ability to resonate with the people we seek to serve, he asserted, his voice steady as he addressed the skeptical glances of his colleagues. By investing in our community, we won't just improve our reputation, we will create a network of loyalty that reflects our values. Imagine the dividends when customers choose us over competitors because we've proven our commitment to the larger fabric of their lives. He felt the room shift. Faces previously frozen in skepticism began to soften, uncertainty ebbing away as curiosity replaced it. Mark continued with stories from the bakery, the little girl whose cake had inspired his transformation, the baker who believed in magic while whipping cream, and how their lives intersected with the company's trajectory. The power in these narratives transcended numbers. It breathed life into the abstract concepts he had previously fought so hard to sell. For every lingering doubt about profitability, Mark presented compelling data that showcased the financial benefits of corporate social responsibility, the potential for increased customer loyalty, brand recognition, and community involvement. And as he ended on a passionate note, he could feel the air change, the doubt that had loomed heavy, now accompanied by a tentative sense of excitement. A voice broke through the murmur, cautious yet probing. But what happens if the financial forecast doesn't align with these new initiatives? It was his longtime ally, Jeff. Mark had anticipated this. If we continue to push only for growth and neglect connection, the numbers will surely stagnate. This isn't mere philanthropy, it's an investment in the foundation of our brand, our soul. We can cultivate loyal customers who believe in our mission, not just ones responding to transactions. The ensuing discussion stretched tense, with pros and cons weighed against each other. Voices of support began to emerge, while others clung to the safety of traditional metrics. But Mark remained anchored, empowered by the journey he had undertaken and the faces of those who had inspired it. Reinforced by his team's enthusiasm, he addressed their fears openly. I understand the risks, no venture is without them. But I promise. My commitment extends beyond this meeting. I want to see this through. Together, we can shape a legacy that intertwines profit with purpose. Finally, the moment arrived for a vote. Mark's heart raced as the board members cast their ballots. The air thrummed with anticipation, and as the counts were revealed, the revelation washed over him with heady relief. The proposal had passed, and with it, a mandate for change. Within days, the rollout of Operations Heart began. Mark felt a newfound sense of agency, the joy of impacting something greater than himself propelling him forward. It wasn't a one-time act but a commitment, a lifestyle shift for both him and his company that involved understanding and nurturing the community that had once seemed alien. As he walked through the bakery on his way home one evening, Mark spotted Emily, the little girl who had sparked this entire transformation, her bright laughter ringing out amid flour-dusted counters. He felt the ice around his heart melt. Her smile embodied everything he was striving for. He had faced his fears, endured the scrutiny of skeptics, and ultimately embraced the conviction needed to overhaul his approach to leadership. He had indeed accomplished something monumental. He had successfully woven purpose back into the fabric of his company and his life. Mark Thompson was no longer merely a CEO trapped in a cycle of profit and loss. He was a steward of his community's well-being and a harbinger of heartfelt change. With steadfast confidence, Mark knew this was just the beginning. His journey was transforming him daily, reshaping his identity into one that embodied resilience and purpose. He had accomplished not just a business initiative, but a personal transformation. He proved that genuine connection could outlast cold calculations. He stared into the bakery window, watching as Emily dug into her birthday cake, her eyes alight with joy. In that moment, Mark finally felt at home, a captured heartbeat of authenticity resonating within him. Now was the time to share this journey, to reach out to those who had only ever seen the surface. The need for connection didn't stop here, it spread across communities and lives, enhancing everything he had ever believed in. And as he re-entered the bustling street, he made a promise to himself: he would keep challenging the status quo. True transformation had only just begun. Now, it is your turn to become part of this story. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Unleash the power of storytelling and support the mission of personal overcoming. Don't wait even one more second to share.